Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Creation Myths. I didn't plan on doing a show tonight, but you know what? Saw something come across my feed on YouTube just like 45 minutes ago and said, why not? Let's talk about it. So we're going to do just a really quick one here. This is a really impromptu thing so for those of you watching, just let me know if like the sound is okay and everything. It seems okay on my end, but you never know. So just let me know if there's an issue. I'm going to carry on assuming we're good. And if we're not, I can always deal with it later. So we are going to talk very briefly about a YouTube short put out by CMI, Creation Ministries International, about junk DNA. This, like I said, this came across my feed like literally 45 minutes ago. And I said, you know what? This is ridiculous. So we're going to talk about it. This video is only a minute long, but they managed to cram a lot of wrong into that 1 minute. And it doesn't deserve like its own thing, but I'm going to just pull it up and we're going to talk about it and we'll see. So here we go. Here is our video. Let's listen. Again, this is from Creation Ministries International.
Evolutionists have long proposed that nearly all our DNA, 98%, is junk,
That's never been the case. I talked about this. I did a video on this within the last few months. At no point did anybody think that 98% of the human genome, which was, all the non-protein coding DNA, at no point did anyone think that was junk, all of it. And the reason for that is very simple. We knew about functional non-protein coding DNA before the term junk DNA existed in the scientific literature. So this is just wrong. They're just, at this point, I am comfortable saying that CMI is just straight up lying about this. The end. That has never been true. It's not true. Stop saying that, creationists.
has no function whatsoever. They claimed this because evolution needs lots of junk DNA for 3 reasons.
So evolution does not need a lot of junk DNA. Evolution will accommodate varying degrees of junk DNA based on a lot of different parameters, but you don't need it. Evidence of that is organisms that don't have a lot of junk DNA. So you can look at lots of prokaryotes, for example, have almost no junk DNA in their genomes. So you don't need, they clearly evolve. You don't need junk DNA for them to do their thing. But let's see why evolution needs junk DNA.
Firstly, there are far too many mutations which would cause our extinction, but if nearly all of them occurred in junk DNA, then they are less of a problem. Secondly,
okay, so that's like a genetic entropy thing, saying in order to survive this onslaught of mutations, you need junk DNA where they can occur without having a cost. Now, no, because again, some organisms have very little junk DNA. It just depends on kind of where that selection threshold is for dealing with DNA that is more or less neutral within your genome. But this is basically building off of a genetic entropy argument. And in real population genetics, rather than like the fantasy population genetics that creationists do, this is not the case. This is one hypothesis for the existence of long regions where you don't have any specified functions. But like, it's not a necessity. And we know it's not a necessity because things exist without it and they're fine.
if mutations, accidental changes, created us, then accidents cannot create DNA with 100% function. This would be unbelievable. Thirdly,
so that is just kind of an assumption, right? Accidents, right, which I take to mean unguided processes like mutation, selection, drift, right? The evolutionary processes, they cannot create us by accident. But again, there are genomes that are, if not 100% functional, then there are close to it. They exist, and they are the result of evolution. Okay, I think so. I think we're doing a little putting the cart before the horse here, right? We're kind of begging the question, I think, would be perhaps a way to describe what's going on with that second one.
if mutations created us, they must have occurred in lots of DNA that had no function to allow lots of experimentation without damaging the existing functions. However, modern science...
So that actually, I'll give him credit for that one. Yeah, that makes sense. There's DNA that doesn't have a function where you can have mutations happening and it may then acquire a function. Yes, we've directly observed that happening a lot. That's what happens when you have, like, for example, a gene duplicates, and then one of them inactivates and it becomes non-functional, becomes a pseudogene. But then there are some pseudogenes that have secondarily acquired new functions. There's also plenty of examples of de novo genes where you have a region that is not protein coding and it's able to mutate kind of freely without being selected against because it's not doing anything. And then it acquires through mutation like a start and stop codon, and now it's an open reading frame. Now it becomes a protein coding region, and now you can develop a new now you can fine tune the structure of that protein through natural selection and mutation to develop a new function, right? These are things that we have directly observed happening. So like, I'll actually give them that one. That was an okay description of that process. I'll give them that one.
It reveals that nearly all our DNA has a function, and this is a huge problem for evolution.
No, see, that's just a lie. Again, what we have revealed over the last 25 years of human genomics is that in every class of DNA in the human genome that we have documented, retrotransposons, pseudogenes, endogenous retroviruses, right? The subgroups of retrotransposons like signs and lines, in every class of DNA, we have found functional examples, things that have been co-opted to serve as promoters or regulate this or that process. We found examples of those in each of those types of DNA. That is unquestionably true. But most of them not only do not show signs of doing those things when we look, like the level of activity is too low to do those specific things, but it's also the case that just in terms of the sequences that are present in most of those things, they can't do the particular functions. So again, CMI is lying here. Whoever wrote this script is lying to you, because it is not the case that we have found function for almost 100% of the genome. In fact, recently, I had a debate with Dr. Casey Luskin of Discovery Institute. The question in the debate was, is the human genome largely junk DNA? And at the end of that debate, Dr. Luskin said at the very end of his closing statement, he said that based on what we currently know, we cannot assign function to over 50% of the human genome. We disagree on where that number is, right? I say it's like 10-ish%. He says it's higher than that, but we both agree it's not up to 50%. So it is simply not the case. And other creationists agree that it is not the case that we have documented function in anywhere near 100% of the genome. Again, CMI, they're just being dishonest by saying that.
Creationist scientists doubted the junk DNA idea all along.
Real scientists also doubted the junk DNA idea all along. As neutral theory was becoming a thing in the mid to late 20th century, you had the people opposed to that, the adaptationists, who all along were saying that junk DNA is either not real or a very small fraction of the human genome, if it is real at all. It turns out those biologists, those real scientists making that argument were wrong about that. We've documented, based on what we now know, a lot of junk DNA in the human genome, but it is not the case that it was, those pesky dogmatic biologists saying this one thing, but it's the brave creationists fighting against the status quo that saved the day on this. That's a misrepresentation of the history surrounding the question of junk DNA. This was an open question in the scientific community, and I think continues to be, even though I think we should put it to bed at this point. But this has always been an open question among real biologists.
Although because we live in a fallen world, they expected to find some damaged DNA that might appear to be junk, but not much.
I like that little bit of hedging right there, right at the end. It's like, we're going to find some stuff that's not functional, but like not much. That's just because of mutations, right? So I do appreciate that little bit of hedging right there. So that, I believe, is the end. They're just going to do their little ministry pitch. So let's just see here.
Find out more from Creation Ministries International. Visit our website, creation.com.
All right, and that's it, folks. That is a YouTube short from CMI about junk DNA. Popped up on my feed, probably because I've been doing junk DNA stuff. And that was 1 minute of tons of wrong things and at least 2 blatant lies. So I hope that was fun. That was it. We're going to wrap this up. Only about 10 minutes tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with my real video for this week. Sal Cordova is joining me to talk about protein orchards, and we're gonna talk about whether they are a problem. The idea that proteins don't share common ancestry like cellular organisms do, but the individual proteins and protein families don't, we're going to talk about Sal's argument that that is a problem for evolution. So come back tomorrow night and we'll have a longer show on that topic. Thank you all for watching. Have a great night.